For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ken Holman, H-O-L-M-A-N, and I have been part of the community for a long time. One of the groups that I'm involved with is Réalta, Online Publishing Systems Limited. I'm their XML lead in the publishing of XML documents, specifically JATS documents and the standard tag set subset, or NISO-STS, which is a derivative of JATS. But this talk isn't about JATS. This talk is about a GitHub project that I created in support of a project called OLSPub. And to give you some background about OLSPub first, some background comes from the US National Library of Medicine and 150 years of collecting biomedical metadata regarding research, biomedical research. And this is a trove, 39 million biomedical research citations being maintained within the United States National Library of Medicine. Now, National Institute of Health has been addressing some cutbacks in funding and such. And so this wealth of information, notice about 2002, the XML interface to this metadata. Now, PubMed does not store the research itself. It's only the citations. It's only the metadata. So there's a very simple DTD for adding information into PubMed, and there's a different DTD. They didn't ask me. There's a different DTD for getting information out of OLSPub. Quite simple. So I'm not dealing with JATS. I'm just dealing with metadata. But so XML in, XML out for the database ingress, egress. But the question is, what's going to happen? Right now, it's free to use. It's totally open. Anyone can use it. But I think the question is that going to change? Now, to address that, I have to talk about these wonderful people at the German Medical Library, ZB MED, and in particular, they have a project from the Information Center for Life Sciences. And that project is the Open Life Science Publication Database called OLSPub. And their goal is strengthening the community by building a resilient and sustainable solution. That says it all. These are wonderful people. I love these people. I want to help these people as much as I can, because I think that what they're doing here is so important to the life sciences community, because the alternative is unthinkable. You know, the whole world's research is based on these citations, and it would be worse than a shame to have those citations unavailable. Well, their goal in this project that they've proposed is to initialize the entire content of PubMed into this database, and day one have a commitment to openness, to transparency, to multilingualism, for unfettered global access into the future without threat. Without threat. So that, to me, is laudable. That, to me, is worth helping. Now, I should state I have no connection with ZB MED or the Life Centers group. I am totally independent. There's no connection there, but that doesn't stop me from wanting to give the public tools to help them use OLSPub. So that's my goal. And the thing what caught my eye was the fact that they were using XML in and XML out. And I know that there are many people out there who are allergic to angle brackets. They don't want to enter XML. They don't want to see XML. But, and I'm told in this life sciences community, that's particularly the case. So what could I do as this independent, arm's length, no connection to ZB Med? What could I do to help the community? Well, I like working with angle brackets. I like making angle brackets easy. So I created PubNote. And PubNote is an open source, fully open source project available on GitHub. I am hoping people will contribute to it. By the end of this presentation, you'll know more about what future plans I have for PubNote. But day one, within weeks of the announcement of OLSPub, within weeks, I had this environment set up where when you have XML either going into PubMed or out of PubMed, and you want to look at it, what could I do to make looking at that easier? And so it's open source for the exposition, initially for the exposition of the content. So I have on the left the kind of XML that comes out of PubMed. And this is what the life sciences community is being asked to work with, these angle brackets. And so no wonder they get rashes looking at this, because it's just a mess. Now, at the least, I can indent it and give them XML. But these are communities of users who are used to using Office tools. So I've created an environment that transforms this original XML into PDF, into HTML, and into DOCX, because I gather that Word is very popular in the life sciences community. So can I give them these choices of looking at the information for PubMed in ways that allow them to consume the information more easily? And I also want to make it easy. And so I have 4 different user interfaces into being able to produce all of those renderings. So when you clone this repository and you pick up an XML file, you can either address it using the DOS command line, you can pick it up out of a folder and drop it into the repository folder and have it execute a batch file. You can do it from the shell command line on Mac, or even drag and drop on Mac into these Mac apps. And all of those invocations will produce all of the renderings as a subdirectory in the directory you're in with your XML file. Trying to make this as easy as possible to these life science community users so that they don't have to see the XML at all. They just pick up the file, drop it onto. Now, notice I have different languages, French, English, German. My thought is that some of these element names are cryptic. Wouldn't it be nice if we had language labels? Well, if I can do that for one language, I can do it for multiple languages. So I'm hoping the community, one way the community can contribute to this project is reviewing all of the natural language labels I've used automatic translation for, to use proper words instead of this automatic translation from Google, to improve the labels so that the information is exposed in ways that are with labels. So Medline citation, PubMed ID, journal issue. You see, those are the strings, the labels that are associated with the element names, again, so that these users don't have to see the element names. That's all modular in XSLT, so if anyone can help by contributing better translations for the languages or additional translations for the languages, perhaps Dutch, then this can be of use to that community. So that's the objective. It's totally independent, no relation to ZB MED. I just hope that their users discover this tool and find it useful and get me feedback on what more they can use, that I can work with the XML to make their work with XML easier in their job. That's my goal. Well, this is an example of single source publishing. And single source publishing, we've been talking about for a long, long time, decades. We're replacing this need to create multiple outputs by creating a single input that goes through a publishing process to produce the outputs. You're doing single source that gets published in an effort to reduce errors or inconsistencies between the different renditions. If you're doing them separately, they might end up looking different. You don't want them to look different. So this is supposedly the way to guarantee that, and we have been preaching that for a long time. Now, in my Réalta world, we are doing this with ISO standards. So national standards bodies have an obligation to print ISO standards. They get a single XML from ISO. They might wrap that XML with additional XML for their national language adoption of an ISO standard. And that standard has to be produced in PDF, HTML, and DOCX. So I talked about this process over 2 years ago now at a JATS-Con conference, and so I'm borrowing a few of those slides from JATS-Con to share with you how I did it for PubNote, and to talk about what I call sustainable single source publishing, as opposed to unsustainable single source publishing, because we preached this approach, but hidden in this is the fact that having to do 3 separate transforms to produce 3 different outputs doesn't get away from a lot of the hassles of ensuring that the output's the same for the all 3. Well, the problem being, you have to do a semantic interpretation of your input 3 different times in order to produce the 3 outputs. And if you don't do it right all 3 times, you're going to have inconsistent output. And I think that wasn't talked about, because yeah, single source publishing means you only have 1 coming in and you're doing 3, but you still got the creation process problem of maybe not doing it the same way all 3 times. So I think that's unsustainable, and it's certainly unsustainable in ISO standardization, or ISO standard documents, and it's not just ISO, IEC, CEN, CENELEC, national bodies are all using this one vocabulary that's based on JATS, NISO STS, and to have to support clients with 3 interpretations of that incredibly complex JATS vocabulary is unsustainable. Well, PubMed XML in and XML out is nice and simple. I can give you an implementation of what I call, this is more of what I was saying, unsustainable. I have to write a transform to produce a block, a transform to produce a div, and a transform to produce SWPX, I'll talk about that in a bit, to represent Word. And it's this semantic interpretation that's being duplicated. So, since that's not going to work for large standards documents, 1,000 pages long and hundreds of constructs that need to be supported, I find a sustainable way of maintaining a large style sheet like this is to chain the output from the preparation for PDF, which in the XML world is XSLFO, and work from the FO to produce the XHTML, and work from the XHTML to produce the DOCX, because as Tom just told us, the DOCX is very flat. HTML is very flat. I'm already flattening the deeply rich JATS document of an ISO standard into flat XHTML. It's very straightforward to go from the flat HTML into the flat DOCX. And the reason this is, I think, more sustainable is that I'm doing the semantic interpretation only once, and everything else is declarative without me having to think about the semantic interpretation of what a construct in an ISO standard means, or what a JATS construct means, because I will have already interpreted what that means in the XSLFO, and I just have to then distill from that FO all of the information needed downstream, and these become mechanical because it's declarative for the rest of the chain. When a new feature comes up and I have to support something new in JATS, it is sufficient to support it here and put the information in the FO. Everything else is mechanical, and I get the results that I need on the way downstream. And the way, the feature that I'm exploiting to do this is that XSLFO processors that are conformant are tolerant of foreign namespaces. So I can seed into the XSLFO attributes or elements that are not in the FO namespace, and they will be ignored by a conformant processor. And then it's a mechanical transformation to say, hey, the HTML is a div with the class depth 0. Okay, I'll just declaratively state that and then mechanically transform it. And when I have a new construct here to support, all I have to do is say in the FO what to do downstream, and then all the downstream stuff falls into place. And because PubMed is small, I can do an open source implementation of the entire PubMed metadata vocabulary in this chain and make that tool available for free download. Now, the complete paper talking about JATS and all of that is there from JATS-Con, but in the version of the paper that I've written here, it's all framed for PubNote. So this is the data flow of what you get when you clone the repository. And it all starts here in the middle, where you have data that goes PubMed XML going in or PubMed XML coming out. But you can actually find collections of PubMed documents or sets of documents that I've given you a tool that you can extract from this big XML document individual documents. Now, on the input side, I've given you some validation, you being the life sciences community user, right? I want things to be easy. You've got an XML document. If you need to validate it, you just drag and drop it onto PubNote in check, and you'll get a validation report on the way out. It is my intention to create an environment where those users can create PubMed metadata XML without having to use angle brackets. So, and without having to use end tags. So, using IXML, I'm confident. I'm not skilled enough yet, but I will be. And I hope to present in February at the upcoming symposium for IXML. What my plans are here, and maybe by next year I can show you the working version of creating PubMed metadata from a text file, from a simple text file, that the user doesn't see any angle brackets or end tags, and they still create valid XML. So that's the goal for that. But let's look at the exposition on the way out, because both of these documents go through a process of rendering with a given language set of labels, producing an XSL FO file, and if FOP were conformant, then I would just pass that file to FOP. But FOP is not conformant in this regard, so I have to flush out all of my annotations of FO and create an FO version that has no foreign namespaces, and then the FOP that I give you will produce the PDF. But when you take that annotated FO file and you transform it, you get XHTML that you can browse with CSS style sheets. You transform that into SWPX, the simple word processing XML created by our friend and colleague Elliot Kimber. Remember Elliot? Yes, Elliot has created Wordinator. And Wordinator takes an SWPX XML representation of the simplified concepts of a Word document. It is not WordML, it is Elliot's vocabulary. And since XHTML is flat, it's a straightforward transform to create SWPX that's flat. And I have a DOTX file for all of the styles for Word, and I combine that using Wordinator, and so the user ends up with a DOCX file they can open inside of Word and have all of that labeled information in French or German or English. Oh, and for the PubMed users, there's two English ones, one with an A4 geometry and one with the US letter page geometry. So, and that's what I say here. So, I've got 5 minutes for questions. And again, the goal is to try to help the life sciences community. This is an independent project. I'm not affiliated with ZB Med. I just want to help them. They're wonderful people. I love them. I want to do anything I can for them. So if you can help me with this, that'd be great. Are there any questions? Thank you. Behind.
Geert.
Thank you, Ken. Very interesting. I have one observation or a question. Have you ever considered in your flow to put the PDF after the Word? Because then you can basically, you don't have to go through XSLFO. I know you know your way around in XSLFO, but despite that,
no, because of the semantics of layout, I didn't, two things actually. One, I already had the PDF in the FO, and the DOCX came as a late requirement for Réalta. So I'm solving this after the fact of having created. But even still, I would not want to go through Word because of the vagaries of Word. Now, having seen Tom's presentation just now, I'm really looking forward to seeing what more I can do with Word. But personally, I have no interest in using Word as a centralized format. But that's just me.
No, but I mean, you do the HTML4 first, you do the Word from it, and then you just
just print. Yeah. Just do a print from that. Well, I would then be doing my transform. The semantic interpretation would be producing XHTML from the XML. I suppose so. But no, it's not something that personally I would have considered.
In the publishing company I work in, we transform XML into HTML and use CSS to create PDF. So you'd also have the semantic transformation to HTML.
So there's two semantic transformations?
No, it's basically reuse of the same. So the HTML is also the source for the PDF.
Oh, okay.
Well, there are some variants, options,
Of course.
notes and all, but yes.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
O'Neill.
Well, it's okay. Yes, thank you, Ken. Really enjoyed this talk. More about the inputs.
Yes.
So you have a JATS XML.
No, not for this. Oh, excuse me. In the Réalta, yes.
Yes.
JATS on the way in, yes.
Yeah. So are there options for other XML? I know you spoke about IXML as a future.
Yes, for PubMed, I'm hoping to use IXML in order to create a text format. And actually, this will be a specialization. I also want to do it for UBL. So I'll have a generic IXML-based environment for simple text file that can produce XML.
And also, is there options to somebody to fork it and then just have some other XML format?
Absolutely, yes, because I'm hoping to trigger it on an RNG schema. So a combination of IXML and an RNG schema for any vocabulary using this new syntax is what I'm hoping for. And so I'll be developing that as a core. PubMed will be an instance of it. UBL will be an instance of it. And anyone else who wants to use that core can create instances of text editors for whatever vocabulary they want. Again, to keep the angle brackets away.
One last question from Yuri.
Yes, Yuri.
I have a very basic understanding question. So you say they are only storing in PubMed, you're only storing citations.
Yes.
What is the content of the citation then?
Authors, abstract, where to get the information. So if you're researching leukemia and approaches to treating leukemia and such like that, various search criteria would get you all of the citations in biomedical research that you might find helpful in doing your own research in leukemia.
Okay, and have you, sorry, but is there like the network visualizations for that then? That would make sense, right?
Excuse me, gentlemen, I can't hear the question. Excuse me, gentlemen. Excuse me, I can't hear the question. Oh, okay, we'll do that later.
I guess usually there's a URL or a DOI in a citation. I think
Yes.
that's what you're aiming.
If that was your question, I'm sorry.
Oh,
That wasn't? Okay, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, I am staying, so I'll be able to do it. And for those of you who have been asking me, I meant to apologize that I did not bring any new board games this year. I know you all enjoyed the presentation last year on board games, and I had multiple requests for what new games did I bring this year, and I'm sorry, I don't have any. And others of you have asked about the continuing success of Réalta, the small company that's doing standards. We're getting more and more national bodies added to our client list, and you can see that the success that we've been growing in producing products or a publishing service to different clients. So thank you very much.
thank you, Ken Holman.